And I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. So Jillian, can you please take roll and also, I guess, announce any absences that we know of?
Yes. So I'll go ahead and call your name. You can just respond that you're here either in person or online. So first we have Leslie.
Present.
Karthik. Present. Heather has an excused absence, as do Preeti, Varnika, Kelly, and Kelly. So I'll move on down to Lorna. Here. Chris.
Here.
Oscar.
Here.
Juan. And then Kunal is the last member that we're waiting for.
Thank you, Joanne. And our next item is public comment. So do we have individuals here this evening that would like to make public comment? Fantastic. Please, what's your name?
Hi, everyone. Ted Lucas, live here in Issaquah, Newport Way. And we have this opportunity to invite you to another community building social, which some of you who have been members of the Equity Board for a while have even attended and certainly know all about. And so it's our pleasure, sponsored by the Baha'is of Issaquah, the Baha'i Faith Issaquah, who've really been a big supporter from the very beginning of the Equity Board and kind of tried to certainly advocate for and ally with you over the years and so on. So we have invited Equity Board. We've had people from the City Council join us, from the Mayor's office, as you all know. We've had community and social simply. It's a informal kind of opportunity for people to get to know each other and talk about what we talk about as a particular subject. And so I have to go back to my memory and say we've had how does community health not-for-profit organizations contribute to community building? Another one was how does the food bank here at Issaquah contribute to community building? Another one was how does the garage right here next to us contribute to community building for youth and students? Another one was even city council members came and described how they contribute to community building and what their programs are for the community member of the city council. Nourishing Network had a representative come and speak to us also about their network of support for community and resources. And most recently, we had the topic of how does spirituality contribute to community building, which was interesting also, all these different things. So the next one, and I have the invitation for you, which you'll get an electronic copy coming to you from Jillian, I think, is in my hand. So I'll just give you the hard copy. And it is how do service organizations contribute to building a more vibrant community? How do service organizations? So the particular folks that are going to join us are members of the Kiwanis Club here in Issaquah as a service organization. You have Rotary, you have Kiwanis, you have many others who are dedicated to serving the community and community building. So actually we were in contact with Council Member Dave Michelle, and she said she kind of gave us that great idea. And she may be joining us because she's a member of Kiwanis and bring a couple of Kiwanis members. So it's a very informal, and here's the address for one of our homes where many of you have attended, and we'll have that conversation led by those speakers. Everybody has opinions and conversation, and then followed by dinner, very casual dinner, and getting to know each other. So with that, just know that you are very cordially invited. So let me just pass these hard copies around.
Please.
And if you will, either way. And thank you all very much. Love the work.
Thank you, Ted. We appreciate you.
Keep the extras if you'd like to. Jillian, as folks in your office as well.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Do we have another speaker for a public comment? Oh, you're just here joining us. Well, welcome.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Andrea Snyder. I'm the Deputy City Administrator.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrea. Okay, our next agenda item is the approval of minutes for the July 2nd, 2025 meeting of the Equity Board. So if everyone could take a moment just to review the minutes in your packet and know if you have any questions or comments.
I have a couple of paper copies if anyone needs the minutes. Okay. Okay. All right. They're also up on the screen, so happy to scroll as needed.
Anyone have any questions or requests for correction to the minutes? Okay, seeing that we have no requests for corrections, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the Equity Board of July 2nd, 2025. Do we have a first? Motion. A motion.
I second it.
You have a second? Okay. And we're good.
I need a third?
Nope.
Okay.
I feel like I missed part of that motion in terms of.
Maybe just if there's any discussion, and then if there's none, then it's approved by unanimous.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. And we have a unanimously approved set of minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, so I guess the next item is mine. So for my chair report, apparently I have an opening question, and I had two really good questions. I'm going to pick one right now because I have to. And it seems like a wildly inappropriate question tonight, given that it's about 86 degrees outside right now. But I'm going to ask, as the days get shorter, what's one fall activity or guilty pleasure that helps you slow down and enjoy the fall season? So as the days get shorter, what's one fall activity or guilty pleasure that helps you slow down and enjoy the fall season? So who'd like to start?
You go.
Please.
Swimming in Lake Sammamish is perfect in the fall. Just cool enough, but not too cold. Feels like a nice way to spend fall days or fall evenings.
Delightful. What's the temperature in the water? I haven't gotten in.
I don't know, 65, 70. I'm just guessing.
Wow. It seems chilly, but I'm from California.
Oh,
You'd like to answer the question next. And our online folks,
I can go.
please.
I like to sit outside with a cup of coffee in the morning when it's a little bit crisp. I know it's not the nighttime activity that you were talking about when the days are shorter, but there is something about having a cup of coffee in the mornings with the fall around you.
Agreed. It's a nice tradition.
I'll go next. I'd like to do a little bit more walks because it's like nice and like the colors of the leaves change and stuff. So it's like, it's not really a guilty pleasure, but like it is better than walking in the summer when it's like super hot. So
Agreed, especially when it's about 86, 87
Yeah.
degrees outside. Agreed.
Go. I like going hiking in the fall more than summertime. Naturally, you kind of have to slow down in general, just catch your breath. But it's just, yeah, the colors are turning. It's just really pretty, especially getting together with like girlfriends to just walk and talk up the mountains. It's really nice, especially around Issaquah. So very enjoy.
30 minutes.
Yeah, I would say lounging around my apartment on Saturdays, watching college football all day with all the doors and windows open, just letting all the fresh air in.
For me, it's decorating my house for Halloween and then Christmas. It's next 3 months will be all decorating, putting down, decorating, putting down. My husband and I love this season.
I love it. And I actually have to say that, Lorna, you stole part of my answer because one of my fall activities is going down into my basement suite and pulling out the 6 boxes of fall decor. So it's pumpkins, leaves, it's all of that really cool stuff. So I love pulling all that stuff out and organizing where it's going to go. So to me, that just means that fall is here doing that. And then also pulling out the box of sweaters that is getting increasingly bigger since I've lived here in Washington. So not a guilty pleasure, but it's kind of a mark of the turn of the season that sweaters and fall decor. Yeah.
All right, I'm happy to go, and then I think
Please.
anyone else in the room should feel welcome to answer as well. I go on a walk every morning with my dog, but in the fall it's particularly nice because you're getting up a little bit more with the sun rather than when it's already up. And I go on the same walk most mornings, so I can kind of see the changes in the neighborhood and see the colors change and really small things that you'd miss if you only did it once or twice a season. So yeah, I really like that.
Very nice. Anyone want to go in the audience to share what, as the days get shorter, what fall activity or guilty pleasure helps you slow down and enjoy the season?
Well, thank you. Again, hi, I'm Andrea, the Deputy City Administrator, and I discovered a new guilty pleasure last fall. I went to Bob's Farm, which is up north in Seattle, and they have the most amazing apple cider donuts.
Yeah.
That just knocked my socks off. So I think I might have to make another trip this year and go to the farm. They also had the best Crisp apples I've ever had. So I might have to go up and load up some donuts and some apples. It was a good time.
I'll go next, but where's Bob's? What county?
Well, it's just Bob's Farm.
It's in Snohomish.
Snohomish. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
and they have a maze there too. So you can
It's a
do
big
donuts
one.
and a maze. Yeah.
And it's got fire pits
Yeah.
too that are really
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Andrea, I'm writing this down. Bob's Farm. Thank you very much, Anquan.
So I would say she got it, donuts and coffee and driving into the hills and the mountains for the fall, colors and all that. And enjoying how brisk and how beautiful sometimes the sun can be on a cool fall day and looking through the beautiful colors and looking for a new coffee and donut place. Good one.
Nice. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. Good stuff. And we have a really neat place to go. Apparently, Bob's Farm.
Not intended to be a city promotion. They're not an Issaquah business. It's just.
So noted. And do we have anyone online that wants to share? We had Nisha go, so,
I think we're good. but
Okay.
I'm just in so I can screen share.
all right, fantastic. All right, so it looks like, Jillian, your staff report?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been since July 2nd, if you can believe it, since this group last met. So welcome back, kind of post-summer, oddly enough. So just a few updates. So the staff equity team is continuing work on that wider equity assessment that we've talked about a few times. And we'll be bringing that back to the board to talk about your role and some kind of review process for that. So that's still chugging away. I wanted to share that your next meeting is not at the beginning of August, but rather it's on October, or I'm sorry, it's not the beginning of October, but on October 22nd. It's a joint meeting with Human Services, where you'll be hearing from a couple of Human Services partners. And you'll also be hearing a presentation on some transportation topics. More information will come, so that's still a Wednesday at 6 p.m. So it's still your normal time, just a little bit later in the month than you all typically meet, and I'll be sending out a lot of reminders and notice on that. And next, I'd like to share that Dale Markey-Krimp, your usual liaison, received an award from the Washington City County Management Association for outstanding assistant, in part because of her work with all of you and her wider equity work. So I thought you all would like to know that.
That's fantastic.
Congratulations. Yeah, so well deserved for her. So, but that's all I've got.
All right, thank you, Jillian. Okay, so the next agenda item is our discussion of Culture Fest. So unfortunately, with some challenging schedules, mine in particular, in August, the two meetings that we were wanting to schedule were not scheduled in terms of planning for Culture Fest. So I reached out to Jillian this morning and figured that we could do some discussion and brainstorming this evening to come up with some solid ideas that we can implement on Friday to make our table really engaging and interesting. So with that being said, I guess we can jump right in to some brainstorming, and I'm going to lean on Jillian a bit to kind of talk about some of the questions that she laid out in an email to me this morning. And some of that information could have been shared with some of you, but I'm just going to go through some of your comments, Jillian, from the email this morning.
Yeah,
So
if I can interject quickly,
please.
just to remind folks, Culture Fest is this Friday. The event starts at 5:30 with a softer opening at like 5:20. Folks are allowed to arrive, I believe, no earlier than 4 p.m. to set up their booths. And you'll tear down your booths when the event ends at 7:30, and it's right out here on the community center lawn. I have a couple more like logistic detail things that we can get into once you all kind of talk about what you want to, how you want to table. So
Fantastic, thank you. So I do recall when we last met in July that the board did seem, based on Jillian's comments, thank you so much, that the board did seem very interested in doing something that would bring community folks to the table and share a bit about what the board does. So just in terms of getting the conversation kind of going right now, what information can we provide in you all's opinion on Friday to introduce ourselves to the community quickly? So we're at the table, we have folks coming over and they're curious about us. What is it that we can do immediately to start speaking to the community about what it is the equity board does?
From what I recall last meeting too, we were going to talk to folks who went last year, right? To see kind of what was like the wins of the event and due to timing, it's a little bit tight now. So I just want to like see if there's a easier way to go about this. So it was, were we able to contact folks who were at the event last year to see what worked well?
yeah, I'd asked a couple of the board members who were involved. Some of them have since are no longer on the board, but they didn't have any specific like activities or anything like that that they had noted. Rather, they were like anything that kind of brings a little bit of engagement that makes someone kind of want to walk up to the table, or that this group would feel comfortable like reaching out to people who are passing by the table. Those kinds of activities will be helpful to bring folks in because people might not organically stop. So.
Absolutely. So Prithvi, did she say that she was available for, I guess, either an hour or so?
Yeah, she's available from 5:30 to 6:30.
Okay. And I know that I know for a fact last year she was at the table. So she would be a great person to, I think, have with another person that would be, I guess, comfortable in terms of working with her, taking her lead, to be comfortable at the table. So is there any information that we think we can use to introduce ourselves to the community quickly? Because saying that we're on the equity board, that's something that we do. What is the equity board? I think a lot of people would be thinking that. So kind of thinking in terms of a elevator pitch. Who are we? What do we do?
I think, I mean, my one suggestion would be, we have a document that shows all of the work that we've produced in the past 3-4 years. I would say we can have like a poster, just put it on the table. Let's say the equity board has participated in updating the city's religious calendar and supporting and working on the equity framework, and just put at least 5 to 8 big bullet points of the items that we've worked on. I think for fun, engaging activity, we can, but it would require work. And I personally don't know if I can do it between now and Friday, but it gets hard to just pull all of the people in. And so for me, one of the things that I've noted in this role and working with different people coming here is they don't know the meaning of equity and equality. And one of the biggest fights with community members is wanting everyone to have equality, and not recognizing why equity is needed. And so I wonder if there's some kind of question thing. We can put equality on one side and equity on one side and like a paper and like, hey, is this equity or quality when you're giving this and why, and people have to choose. And then using that be the way to get people pulled in to explain why we have to do it, So having a document in English where people have to go online and fill it out for families to report an issue is that, and everyone has the same document. Is that equity or quality, right? And is this a problem? Why would this be something that someone might be concerned about? So just on that line. So just that would be, so just to get people thinking, because for most part, people don't recognize what some inequities exist in our community and why they need to be addressed. And so when we have these conversations, it gets them thinking, oh yeah, that makes sense. It should be addressed, Like having a police officer go to a house, and then when they get to the house, the family doesn't speak English. Like police officers who still work and speak very kindly in English, but that's the only support they have. Is that a best way to service and support our families? And so what would equity be? But I'm sure we have many examples in work that we have participated in when we met with the Parks Department and other departments, and I'm sure the city has some examples. And I'm wondering if we can even have like 5 or 10. We don't really need that many because it's only going to be one person coming to the table at that time to foster the question, and they can pull it out and say, what do you think this is? That's just it.
I think it's a great idea. So I'm just listening to what you've just said. A poster that we would have on our table that would have our equity board success items, like maybe things we've completed within the work plan. So those items sitting on the table as a poster, is that doable for us if we were to pull that together and just have that printed? One poster.
So I think the issue is that I can assist with like normal document printing, but I don't have a ton of access to.
I will pay for it. I am a whiz at getting things sent to Walgreens and printing for my events. So I will print something. If you would send me the documents, and I would love to use, can I use the logo?
Yeah.
So if you just give me a document, I will send it and have it printed and have it ready by Friday morning.
Okay.
And it'll just be a stand-up 16 by 20 document that we can put on.
And I can assist with drafting that, or at least like drafting the logos in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you just give it to me as a PDF or something, I can send it in. I don't think anything needs to be passed out. That's too much.
Okay, that brings up a conversation about a QR code. So Jillian was kind enough to volunteer to create a QR code. So what would we have to direct? So if someone is, I guess, taking a picture of the QR code, where are we having that point to? Is that to the Equity Board website through the city of Issaquah, or through maybe a document such as define what equity is versus what equality is? So maybe an info sheet. So what are you all's thoughts? Sending it to the website, or maybe like an information document, as Lorna just suggested?
My suggestion would be to put it to the website to get more traction into what we do, what the work that we do, the involvement with the community. Just to kind of go off of the equity versus equality, we could print out statements of like randomize right on the table and be like, I don't know, little phrases like everyone gets the same height ladder. Which one do you think that belongs to? Is it equity or equality? Every single household, no matter what size family you have, gets the same amount of, I don't know, canned goods or something. And then have people choose, and then maybe we can engage them that way of like, kind of like pin,
Yeah.
like pinning the
And I could
bucket.
even do another 16 by 20, which just has the word equity and equality and.
And then we- yeah, and then we use-
can just put it
Yeah,
on there.
and I can help print the
Okay.
phrases to bring to the
That would be
table
perfect.
and then maybe like laminate or something and then just pin it. And then that
You
kind
can
of
just do
create,
that for-
yeah, whatever is easy. And then that can also be a discussion with the public too, of like, why do you think this falls into equity or equality? And then it creates a lot more knowledge sharing that way too.
I think that would be a great game. I think it's the engaging game, and I think keeping it light, and I love your example with the ladder. So really keeping it light and keeping it relevant, so it's not so kind of a high idea in someone's head where they're not connecting it, that really equity and equality, we can define these in our everyday life. We're all subject to these concepts that are very real. So I love that.
If you can draft it, that'd be great,
Yeah.
because one of the examples we always use is if you have multiple children or even
Yeah.
two children. And one likes pasta and the other one like, and then what do you
Totally.
give them? And just because when you bring it home to people that you treat your children differently based on what they need.
Mhm.
And same thing with the other people all over.
Exactly. Yeah, make it more realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something they can relate to. If you could do that, I will bring the 2 poster boards
Okay.
in and then we'll just figure out.
Yeah, and I think people can hold on to a few of the slips and be like, you want to guess, which one this belongs to, and then, I don't know, can we have candy or something to give out?
So you read my mind, Juan, because I did some brainstorming of my own before this meeting, and I come from the hospitality industry, so I'm always trying to get people to come and pay attention to stuff, and I'm doing it either with candy, with food, or with tchotchkes, anything to kind of grab people's attention and engage them. So it's going to be kind of warm on Friday, so cold waters. I'm happy to donate those. And I was talking to Jillian before we started this evening, and hard candy would be a great item. And then also, and I'm going to date myself, but that's okay. Otter Pops, the little frozen, so I can donate those little frozen fruit deals that we can have frozen in an ice chest. And I'm happy to donate all of those items to where we have a pool for people to come over to the table to get something cold to drink, a fun Otter Pop, like all the big kids that we are, and some candy, and they can play a game about equity versus equality.
So I like the Otter Pops. I would prefer us not giving any plastic bottles. We're trying to be sustainable in the city of Issaquah. So as we think about what to give, how can we make it a little bit environmentally friendly so that I know the city is really pushing that all of the vendors don't have any trash. So.
Yeah, I think
But
we
I
can do
think-
that a little bit.
The water is going to be helpful. Everyone's going to need it. And so it's always hard to balance that. The Otter Pop would be a great hit, and you'll have a lot of kids and families come to our table.
Okay. If we had a container, just because it's going to be relatively warm, if we had a recycle container, so we can encourage people to go ahead and recycle right then and there, would that be helpful, or do we just want to step away from water as an idea for all the great reasons that you mentioned?
Why don't I clarify a little bit with our sustainability staff exactly what would be the best move? And I'll follow up on whether it's no water bottle or like knowing where there will be, like, I'm certain trash and recycling containers kind of throughout the event, like where's the nearest one to the equity board table to point folks in that direction after they use it.
So for now, how does Otter Pops sound, a little frozen treat and hard candy? And then we will put a pin on the water until. Does that sound good?
I want.
They're so good, and you feel like the biggest kid. So, and I know they're a lot better now, because I know they used to have red dye number 98 in it, and you just eat them as kids and enjoy them. So,
We should put a note to bring some scissors at our table.
yes. So I'm happy to donate those items. So I will work with Jillian in terms of how to do the handoff for those items, all frozen and ready to go. So, and I just made a note, scissors, because you're absolutely right. Gotta cut them open. Fantastic. And then we mentioned so was everyone okay with the QR pointing to the city website for the equity board?
Julian, does that site also have the definitions of equity and all of those other things?
Let me pull it up really quick. Oh, I'm looking at it.
Because if it has equity versus equality, they can go there and other places to get more.
Decides what goes on the site.
It's like a little bit of a push and pull, I'm sure, between the board and communications to keep it regularly similar to other board and commission websites. So that's not to say that we couldn't add a review of the website to your work plan to make sure it's meeting your needs. Okay. So it does not look like it has the definitions or many resources. It does point to some of your founding documents which have some kind of mission statements and your purpose enshrined in code. Let me see. I believe it also has the way to like kind of join meetings or to contact the board if there are maybe questions or that kind of a thing. So that might be the value of pointing to the site, but it doesn't have a ton of that research or further education.
Does the city have an equity like dialogue at all anywhere else?
I don't believe so.
Could the glossary be added somewhere or like linked on this page somewhere? No?
I don't know that the glossary, given that it's really for like thinking about the use of the glossary in terms of a lot of like written communication and how we put out RFPs and things like that, and some of the ways we try to engage folks. I'm not certain that would be the best thing to point to.
We're going to have information on the poster in terms of the work that we've done, our successes, and that comes directly from the work plan, prior year's work plan. And so I think that's where we get the 5 items.
I think if the QR code is just going to go to this page, I wouldn't put it.
You all, if you wanted to, like, maybe as you look for those examples of equity and equality, I know that there are some pretty good, like, visual guides and kind of resources already developed by other folks that you could certainly link to. Like, that wouldn't be an issue. If you wanted to have it be a little bit of a, like, learn more about equity versus equality, I think.
I can find that information because I think I have 2 resources. I have a book actually. So I will volunteer to do that, and maybe that's something of kind of an infographic type look that we could have the QR code point to. And then I know I'm going to assume that the poster that we put together would obviously have the city of Issaquah's information on it. So we would have the website. So if someone wanted to find us in that way.
The one you sent me with all of what we've done on the corner, if you could just put the QR code to this page and leave it as that. And then maybe when you're making your questions on each thing, if you get an answer from a website and the bottom say to learn more about it, you go here. And then if they take it away, they can scan it and leave. But that might be more work between now and Friday for us to.
Yeah, because like my thoughts were we would have those like examples and they would just pin it and leave. Yeah. And then we just have plenty for just for other people to just pick up from the table or take it from a rep and then paste it.
We can bring this idea and do it next year.
Yeah.
For the Culture Fest. More.
Well, we can always like the QR code would be helpful, but I also think about people who don't have accessibility with computers and laptops, right? So it would be nice to have a little bit of a printed source for people to pick up and go with them. You know what I mean? Because there's, just like in case people don't know how to use or access computers as well.
I think we could possibly still do both if you all are open to it, because I love Lorna's idea of having the kind of a compare, contrast, or just terminology. What is equity? What is equality? Because I think it's very confusing. So having that information, I think, on a QR and printed Is that something that, I mean, I could likely find the infographic that I can go ahead and have that printed. What I can't do is the QR if you all are open to going with that idea still. 'Cause I think it would be a great resource. But it's what you all think.
I'm hesitant to put QR codes to other people's companies, and it's good to refer to them, but just so they change something and we put our name with someone else's, it's always awkward. We always give them credit for sure. Just,
And that is something to be conscious of. I think we can kind of maybe mitigate some of that risk by using like what we feel pretty confident is like a verifiable good source. Like I think universities have put out a fair bit of like kind of really basic content on this. And I think we can find something that should hold up.
yeah.
So nothing branded to a particular company, just it may be focused on educational organizations. Okay.
I would love to have seen if Costco had something, but I also don't want to pull them into something they're not quite ready to be in.
I'm not sure if we're allowed to like share Costco stuff externally. I can ask. See what they do. Cause I help build the inclusion site at Costco, but I don't know if we're allowed to share it. It's a good question. I can ask.
Yeah, because I'm wondering how much universities have given DEI pushback right now, and so that's for one of the reasons I'm hesitant of putting any one group on the forefront with us sharing their website.
Could we use King County? King County has a lot of resources in
Mhm.
terms of like recruitment,
Ooh,
DEI,
yes.
inclusion,
Yeah.
and it's very open for people to
Yes.
use.
I love it. And even if Washington State had something.
Yeah.
It would be perfect.
That's very helpful. So I will work on this evening to turn it around quickly and share with everyone, just to make sure that everyone is comfortable with it, that Julian is our staff liaison is comfortable with it. And then if so, I guess we can move forward. And is this something that you would want us to format in terms? Okay.
No, if you have any, like, once you find it, if you have any really strong thoughts on formatting, you can, but we can either link directly to it, or I can pull it into a PDF to link to it. So that way, if, for example, King County changes the link address, it would still be good because it would just be permanently linked to something that's static.
Okay, great.
So, and obviously give them credit for it.
Okay. Got it. Are there any other ideas that we can pull into our table at Culture Fest that you all think we need to surface and discuss? I know we have a tight timeline, but we have some great ideas here. I mean, sometimes when the pressure is on, the ideas flow and they're amazing. So.
I have a suggestion, a thought, not sure if it would fit into this setting, but is it helpful to describe some of the top inequities in our city? Or is that maybe too heavy to have at a cultural fest? It might be a way to engage the audience that's curious about like, oh, what inequities exist in Issaquah? Sure. So, but at the same time, it could be not the most comfortable.
I think it's the length of time to have that kind of a discussion is a lot more time is needed to have a good discussion on topics like that. And so I wonder if standing at a booth where people are trying to visit, 20 or 30 different sites, if we have enough time. So I'm thinking more like a 5 minutes, less than that. So if there's a conversation, you think it's a great idea, right? Because people don't even know what inequities. And I wonder how much we can tie this with the equality, equity kind of thing. Right? And do we put like inequality, inequities, like a whole part of portrait? Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. I was even thinking something like, did you know? Question mark. A, B, C, D.
Oh,
A few different things about things that are not so equitable. And maybe also, to be fair, like what's equitable in Issaquah? Like what are we proud of that we think is the city can sort of show off as like, we've done a great job of building this sort of equity in our community.
So
I
good, sorry.
Sorry, I think if I could just jump in really quickly, thinking about the reason we have Welcoming Week and Culture Fest, this idea of there are new people in our community. Maybe they're new and they moved here recently, or maybe they still feel a little new, right? Maybe they haven't felt welcome before. I think to Lorna's point, maybe there's a jumping off point in some of the equality and equity examples we give, and we kind of share what does this look like in Issaquah. But I think it is a really positive, welcome focused event. So I just want to be cautious of that because that is a conversation that deserves like the right time and space to be had.
Is it possible to maybe have like an anonymous box of like comments and suggestions that we could pull together?
I feel like we did that last time. Did we have some kind of,
I don't have any notes on it, but
like
Like, so no
people
one
could
mentioned-
write stuff on sticky notes. It wasn't even a box. They could write on sticky notes and put, and then,
I think,
Yeah.
I remember you.
yeah.
I think to Julian's point, this welcoming week is, I guess it's a blue sky type of experience where I think who we are and what we represent can be seen by people as being heavy and possibly unapproachable as the equity boards. I think the exercise of equity and equality is a great jumping off point because of the fact that I don't think people think about those two concepts in their lives. And so I think you can approach that positively and very relatable in terms of different children, different needs, or even height disparities, things along that line. So I think it's the introduction of it, and then this topic can and does and will get very heavy. But I think for our purpose, we want to invite people in, give them some sweets and talk to them about how, the equity board works in Issaquah and what we're doing in terms of our work plan and the things we've been successful with. So it's kind of an open door and an invitation in. I think that's a great idea. It's a deeper conversation that I think it really deserves that more wholesome kind of approach. But we want to invite them in and say, have a seat.
Chris, I cut you off and
Oh, you're okay. I think most of you covered kind of what I was thinking. I do think it's a really good idea. I would worry whoever's on the booth would feel pressured to be like, oh, what are you doing about this inequality thing? And then because it's not going to be all of us, they're going to be like, I don't know, but we can listen to it. So I feel it put whoever the people are manning it or on the booth in a weird spot to have to like answer what we're doing about it.
It's also the inequity might exist, and it might be that the group has not been able to address it or working on it, because as someone who works in a place where we see that, very often work is being done, but it's just hidden work and it's not fully realized, or there are different reasons why it still exists. I like the idea of making sure that the people working at the booth are leading in with curiosity, because to me, equity work is about leading into curiosity. And so I think that is the key word we should be kind of emphasizing on. Our main takeaway for people, like, we just want to make sure that when we work with different organizations and people in the city, we help them say why, like, and why do you think, or leading into other people's perspective, who's not at the table, whose voice is not being heard, is this going to meet the needs of all, and keeping like different groups in mind. And so just always being curious in our work, and not as tunnel vision in some of the work that might be happening.
Do we know who's reading it? Yeah, has that been decided?
that's probably our next thing we need to talk about.
Absolutely. It's the next thing that I have on my list. So who is available to volunteer for the table on Friday?
Setup will start probably a little bit before 5. And you'll receive a map of where the booth is. I'll also be on site that day, to help get you to the booth and if we have kind of things to carry and stuff like that to help. And then the event will start a bit after 5 and run till 7:30. So depending on availability, you could break it up into 2 shifts, or just however it works to have probably 2 to 3 members there the whole time.
I can help table,
Mhm.
but it would be like a little bit after 4:30.
Okay, yeah.
So you can help with setup? Okay.
Fortunately, I cannot support because I am working at a table for the Issaquah School District.
You'll be there.
Last out.
There's actually 4 options. Kiwanis Food Bank. And the school district.
It's choice. Equity board.
I have a other engagement at 5, so unfortunately I can't be there at 5 either. It's because you said we start at 4 setting up.
You all won't need to be there at 4.
Okay.
I would say like 4:30 or 4:45 would be fine for setup because it would
Okay.
be the few things we've talked about, and getting them kind of set up on the table and yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so
And then depending it kind of.
don't think I can probably do like 15 minutes. I'm looking at the notes from last time. The people who aren't here, who said they could, is there any way we can ask them? A few people in the last meeting said they're available to work the event.
So I already checked in with Preeti. She's available from 5:30 to 6:30. Can you, I can take a look at the minutes. So can you remind me of who
Yeah.
else?
Kwan, Varnika, Karthik, and Leslie indicated interest in working on this.
I can help with the setup since I'm gonna help print out the stuff for the board. And I can be there until 5:30, so like 4:30 to 5:30.
All right, it looks like we're gonna need a couple of folks who are able to kind of take the end shift, the like 6:30 to 7:30 sort of bit.
I have something on my calendar that I'm going to try and move, and I'm in, budget season and it's pulling me everywhere, but if I can do the later shift, I'll have to confirm that, with Jillian and you all tomorrow.
Unfortunately, out of town.
I also know we have Nisha online, and I also know she has to drop off of this call at 7, so I just wanted to see Nisha if you're available at all. This Friday.
No, unfortunately, I am volunteering at another event at the high school on Friday afternoon, and early evening. So I unfortunately will not be able to help on Friday. I can try and stop by in between my volunteer shifts, but I don't want to be a guaranteed person in case I can't be there.
Understood.
I can switch to the later.
Yeah,
shift
do you
if
have
it's
flexibility?
necessary. Yeah, so
Okay,
I actually need to go to Renton at 3 p.m. So
okay.
Do you think Leslie can we ask her if she can work the 6:30 to 7:30 shift and then,
Oh, ask me?
I'm sorry, not Leslie, Kelly. Is Kelly still available?
I can ask Kelly. I can ask her and Varnika if they're available. Right now, we would have Quan available for setup. Preeti available for kind of like the middle start time of the event from 5:30 to 6:30. And Oscar, it sounds like maybe 6:30 to 7:30. Should be a pretty quick teardown, couple of poster boards, and the handouts. So.
And I'm checking my calendar right now. I'm just reaching out to a colleague to see if I can move something around to where I can do the evening. I guess up until 7:30, if that's where the need is.
Raise my hand and say I'd be happy to help if you have something. I'll be there for that latter part. But, you know.
Great. I think maybe it's also a question of like comfort, like if you are the only person at the booth, knowing that there are gonna be a lot of other booths, people are gonna be kind of moving through, would you feel comfortable kind of fielding that on your own? I'll be there, but I'll also be with another commission as well, so kind of between the two of you for a bit of the event.
Yeah, yeah. I
You
take
feel-
for our interns of their classes. So.
Okay. Juan, would you feel comfortable with being there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
And if I need to have flexibility to like stay a little bit later, that's totally fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Then how about we have it planned, so Juan, you begin with setup, and maybe we can kind of coordinate between you and Lorna to get all the stuff for the tour.
I'll be there by 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Okay, then we
So
can
I'll just bring my stuff with me.
Okay.
And so you can put it up.
Then Preeti will be there from 5:30 to 6:30, and I think just the ask would be to just stay on long enough for her to get there and hand
Yeah.
off.
Okay.
And then the same thing from Preeti to you, Oscar. And I'll write her a little note about it. Okay. And then I'll check in with Monica and Kelly and say that we kind of have need anytime they're available. So hopefully there'll be another person there. And Leslie, you'll just keep us kind of appraised, but obviously understand if.
And Leslie, I don't know if you can drop off the auto pops to me sometime on Friday morning.
You know what? That was actually my next thought, and I can do that.
And if you bring it to me, I'll store it and then I'll put it in a cooler and take it with me to the event.
That's perfect. You change numbers. Drop. Water. Possibly.
And I'll send detailed notes out after this about kind of what everyone's doing and everything. I do want to confirm for the two posters, I can probably grab a couple of accomplishments, but it might be helpful if folks on the board, particularly anyone who's been on the board a little bit longer, can help out and send a couple as well, just given my newness.
We had a meeting a couple of months ago where we had pretty much all our accomplishments on it.
I did.
I printed it.
And so I was looking at,
Oh, is it the past work
Yeah.
plan? Okay.
I feel like they'll share that with the board or something, and so we had a discussion, they just said, here's what the equity board. It was in a slide deck, what we've accomplished in the past. or
Okay, I can look
the-
through and pull from that. Yeah.
Doesn't have to be extensive.
Yeah.
Sounds like we have a solid plan. We have an engaging activity. We have personnel that's going to man the table or be there to represent the equity board. I want to use correct terminology. And generally a plan on what we're going to do that Jillian's going to send us detailed notes out on. So thank you very much. I think this is great conversation, fantastic brainstorming. So perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so it looks like the next item on our agenda tonight is excuse me, the equity framework next steps.
All right, so I'll be presenting is probably too strong a word. I'll be kind of overviewing for you a little bit about the equity framework. And Deputy City Administrator Andrea Snyder is also here to kind of fill in and answer questions as we walk through this. And then we'll be asking for your feedback essentially on what is the next iteration of the equity framework? How should it be used? And how does it relate to some other projects in the hopper for the equity board? So first off, let's just take a look at the equity framework, and then I'll talk a little bit about how it came to be. So this is the equity framework. I believe it was about a year-long process with the equity board and staff to develop this list of 13 questions to help guide folks as they begin new projects or programs, or evaluate existing kind of programs, policies, and that kind of a thing. So I'll just read a couple of the questions to kind of give you a sense of what's on there, and then talk a little bit about how it's been used. So question 3 is, how is my decision going to specifically impact marginalized people? Have I considered how to mitigate harmful results? And just so you know, this is a standalone document. It doesn't come with necessarily resources about who might be marginalized in Issaquah or that kind of a thing, or in our region. There are some self-reflective questions. Is my own personal experience, culture, or background preventing me from understanding and taking the cultural issues of marginalized stakeholders into account in deciding what issues exist for those who are disparately impacted? And then some questions that feel potentially kind of similar. Are there strategies to mitigate unintended consequences? Who will benefit or burden? What are the racial equity impacts? So those are just a few of the questions that are on here. After it was developed in 2023, all of the departments, I believe, were tasked to coming with the equity board with a review of one of their existing programs or policies, or a program or policy they're considering starting, and walking through this equity framework and reporting to the equity board what they had found, what they had maybe done differently as a result of kind of infusing equity considerations in this way. So I pulled out a few examples of that in the materials, but they include things like the sustainable purchasing policy, which came to the equity board, as well as how we notice and sign for planning or land use decisions around the community. So a really wide variety from kind of internal focus to programs and policies that are out in our community. So that's a little bit of background about the equity framework. I believe all the departments came to the equity board over the course of the last year, and now it's on your work plan to review it, to kind of reflect on how that went and what can be improved about the equity framework. I'm going to pause here before I talk a little bit about the feedback that this body gave in January to see if, Andrea, there's anything I'm kind of missing on the back there.
Yeah, thanks, Jillian. I would just say a couple of things. As this framework, the series of questions, is something that staff have been using. So it's more internally focused as staff develop programs or policies, as Jillian said, and make certain decisions. It's a lot of questions. And so in terms of feedback from staff, what I have heard most often is that it's hard to use because it's a lot of questions. And so I think staff have been struggling a little bit with when did they whip out the equity framework? And then, how sensibly can they answer a lot of these questions? And some of the questions are broad and maybe staff don't have all the information to really properly answer them. And so I've heard requests from staff, can we, this is maybe good to have, but can we narrow it down to 3 questions, or be a little bit more guidance about how to use it? And so I think, we've been using it for different things and reporting that here to this group, but that's really what I've heard from those who are trying to use it.
Great. And so this group reviewed the equity framework and reflected on that series of meetings they had with all these departments, and came away with a couple of takeaways. I'm just gonna refer back to the memo at this point. Let me see. So summarizing some of the feedback, a lot of them relate to ease of use. So there was a suggestion to group similar questions to make it a little bit easier to use. So the example that was given was questions 11 through 13, those who's impacted questions at the very end. Folks might need more or better guidance on who might be impacted. Consider asking questions around who is considered to reveal who might be left out of conversation. There's also some comments around this being a tool that's best suited to early planning. To evaluate the success of programs, you need to have different questions, and maybe some more robust framing. Additionally, there isn't enough follow through. It feels like this might be a singular touch point with these questions, but there isn't really a mechanism to direct staff back to them or to evaluate again the success or impacts of work. There may be a need for specialized uses, considering things that might be quite technical, like urban planning, internal processes versus external programs might need different considerations or questions. This group also noted there's a lack of data and presentations from staff, and it was a priority that the equity assessment be used to get some of that data so folks can meaningfully engage with the equity impacts of the work. And then finally, I have here a note that there's a need for pre-planning self-assessment questions to kind of separate some of those questions out to before the rest of the assessment and the rest of the planning really begins for programs when staff use this. So with that, I think I provided 4 discussion questions here. I really do want to zero in on that first question, which is, what is the next iteration of the framework? Essentially, what changes need to be made? And as you consider that, I'd like you to consider how you'd like this framework to be used. Is it something that should only be used for external community-facing programs? Is it something that really needs data to work well? And then maybe we can build backwards what the framework can be. So thinking about the use cases for it first.
I think it does need to be retooled. I think it's very, very long. I think definitely a pre-planning and self-assessment, truly self-assessment for the group as to who will benefit, who are you planning for, all of that will help them as they're making the plan and a post one. And I think narrowing it down to 4 questions, because some of it is, who are we missing, what culturally relevant groups are there, that would have already been in the pre-planning, so we can remove immediately. But the one on the data, that was definitely a big thing, because in the many presentations, we would ask questions and it didn't exist. So how do we minimize having those questions in there, but do it as a next steps review, like keep this in mind, moving ahead. Especially if any of those groups plan on coming and visiting our booth in the next couple of years with that information.
When I hear framework, I don't really think list of questions, and I wasn't here January, so I don't know if y'all talked about this already, but for me, like, framework isn't questions you go through. It's kind of more like a table, like, or check boxes, or a happy path, like yes, no, that takes you down like a way to get to your answer. I think table is like probably the best thing I can think of like, you can have the questions, maybe 4 questions, and then did I do this? Did I think about that? Is this group affected? Is that group affected? It's kind of like reworking it into something like that, where is what I'm thinking. But I'm just thinking out loud now. So
Yeah, I have a similar thought is, can we reframe this into a sort of flow chart of like, is this true or not for the question or the topic you're thinking of? If yes, then what's the next step? If no, is there another next step to make it a bit more actionable? I'm not sure all of it could be reworked that way, but we could try it out and see if it does work for some. The second thought is around categories of equity. So there's some around the racial category, some around some financial, maybe others around health or age, or so I wonder if we could streamline things into a few different categories that might help.
I had a question in terms of our audience for the equity framework. So is our audience city staff, boards and commissions? Is that a fair?
Really just city staff.
City staff.
I would say in terms of like retooling what exists now, it's primarily a staff used list of questions. And thinking about the role of many of our boards and commissions as being advisory, right? Versus kind of the work staff is doing.
And the reason why I brought that up, because I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but your, the fourth question, how should the equity assessment and framework overlap? If there's a desire for it to overlap, then the Evans School recommendations did speak specifically to boards and commissions. So like any document, it's a living document, it's gonna evolve, it's gonna change. So I don't know if there's any thoughts about looking at the current equity framework and focusing it to the city staff, boards and commissions at this point, or do we come back to that at a later point?
When I'd originally written that question, I was thinking about the wider equity assessment, of which the Evans School just took a small chunk, just evaluated our boards and commissions.
Okay.
For equity. I think you bring up a good point. I don't mean to like,
No,
you know what I mean? But I just want to kind of make sure everyone has like the big picture that this city staff have been working on going out to RFP for an equity assessment to kind of set that really big, those bigger goals for equity in our community, making sure we're all on the same page with what that means, and evaluating a couple of our programs, and potentially finding a way to do that. So that's part of this, but I think the tool itself will still be largely used by staff, but there will certainly be some crossover with the work that the Evans School did.
Appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
I agree with what everyone's saying so far. This doesn't scream to me like a framework exactly. And so it's just a little bit, yeah, probably would want to change it to accurately reflect what we're going for off of these questions. The other thing is, previous meeting, we talked about the glossary being up to date. I noticed that a lot of the questions had stakeholders in there. So we would, if it's specifically for internal city use, we probably want to align the verbiage and maybe also link that into like all the tools that's available for the city staff to use and be like, here is some reference points to have a better understanding, because a part of the thing is a lot of these questions, we assume that people know what they should be knowing. And sometimes having additional reference materials of like, what does culture mean? Or like, what does marginalized groups mean? Or our key partners, what does that mean? But probably still need to work out between like grouping the types of questions relative to whatever projects and policies that you're looking for. So that's just some things that I noticed. It's just like the verbiage, and yeah, it'd be helpful to kind of group into depending on what you're looking for.
I'm curious if you all feel strongly that this is something that's best suited to external community-facing programs and policies, thinking about recreation programming or recreation, like sign up and registration went through the equity framework process. If it should be focused on things like that, or it should be more internal. Thinking about things like our sustainable purchasing policy, which certainly affects the community, but is largely directed at what the city buys, right? And how we do that.
I think there's a very robust conversation on both of those topics. And definitely when it comes to how it impacts our community members, % sure. I think as having outside groups kind of bring it in so that we can use the various perspectives of the members who represent some of the different groups was very beneficial. And sometimes for some of the more internal ones, it was harder. 100%. I saw that because we didn't have enough of an understanding to really give robust feedback on a project that was very much nuanced. So I can see both, but when you're talking about budgeting for different, I know there were a couple things that were really helpful for us to learn and listen and about to. Also going to question number 2, I'm wondering if some people can work on it who have worked with different frameworks, maybe needs. Because a lot of thoughts are coming, and I think that it would be great to have like a work meeting and make some changes. Because I think one of the things I want to just note is when we adopted this, we had a trainer come and do a presentation for the original equity board, and there were different questions presented, and we had to narrow down and agree upon a set of questions. So these are not questions we technically wrote in the equity board. It was the trainer came with a framework, and then we looked at the frameworks different organizations throughout the country had used. And then we chose one that we thought would best meet the need for a very wide group of departments in the city. So I think now that we've done more work and figure out how it could be implemented within the city, I think people could work on rewriting and reorganizing this to do something that would suit with city members maybe to meet the needs.
I agree, 100%. And just the conversation here, taking this language and putting it in categories, I think, as Karthik mentioned, and making it more specific to someone to use as a city staff person in terms of how can we use this to focus either consideration on a contract or considerations in terms of who's being served by whatever it is that's being looked at. So just making the language more specific, because it looks like there's a need and a desire to use the framework, but more in a specific way by those in the city. So I think putting this information into categories in order to focus it, I think it would make it less cumbersome and I think more usable ultimately to the audience that we are working on this for.
It sounds like maybe a next step, and let me know what you think of this, is to kind of identify a less than quorum group of this group, to create a proposal for what exactly the retooled equity framework would look like, get board sign off on that, and also kind of be in communication with staff about what that would look like and what the ask would be from city staff. And then to move forward with actually retooling it, just to have like a couple of touch points to make sure that the full board is signing off on it. Does that seem appropriate?
Sounds fantastic. Jillian, just based on the high level conversation that we've had, which I think has been fantastic, does this give itself to a formal motion in terms of us as a board being directed to a particular action? So
You certainly can. You definitely can. The reason I didn't suggest it at first, I guess, is because it's already on your work plan. It's already something that this group has agreed to take up.
Okay.
When we actually get to the point where there is a revamped framework, that would certainly be something where it'd be great to have that kind of formal like sign off from everyone. So that might be the right checkpoint.
Okay, so because
or if there was a lot of disagreement at this moment, maybe we could have a vote, but.
Of course, no, that makes sense. And since it's on our current work plan, it sounds like it's an action item.
Yep.
In order for us to work on it. And then eventually, when we get to the point where it gets more specific.
Right.
Then
And
we
there,
formalize the motion.
actual changes to be made and kind of more detailed discussion about this versus that kind of thing. So.
Makes sense.
Andrea, is there anything else you want to add to this discussion?
Not that I would add. I think y'all are headed in a great direction. And I think that subgroup who's going to be really rolling up their sleeves and deciding what this looks like. I think some of the questions I would have for them is, what's the right format? So it's in the format of a bunch of questions now. I heard one member say maybe it should be like a flow chart, like decision tree. So that might be something for the next group, unless you all want to weigh in on that a little bit more and give guidance to that subcommittee that's going to be created.
Anyone have strong feelings now, or is this more of a wait and see?
I think it's a wait and see.
I will think the flow chart is great.
Flow chart
Okay.
sounds great.
I
Just
agree.
kidding.
I agree.
I do like decision flow chart thing.
Yeah, something visually easy to follow
Mhm.
because sometimes it's just really hard to read and then kind of figure out where you want to go from there.
Yeah.
So, but just to answer your earlier question, whether or not like the views about being external or internal, I do think both is really important. So, but if I were to lean on today, I'd probably say internally also because a lot of the things you have to start internally before it goes out to the communities, right? So it's kind of just like that ripple effect. And so that just will be beneficial, I think, at the end goal.
It's super valuable to reaffirm the intent.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess now is the point where I'd ask, who of the folks here would be interested in working on that? This will probably be something that you all work on through the end of the year, just knowing that our October meeting is late and it's quite busy. And then we have November and December shortly thereafter, and we get into holidays and busy times.
I'm happy to be on it if no one else wants to. But
Also-
either way,
I'll put it out to the group as well if we don't have like
yeah,
the full
Or,
board. We can have 4 people work on this.
okay.
And if we have a desire to work on it as a larger group, we can always add it to the agenda for a discussion of a particular part of it or something, right? So if there are folks who want to be involved, or we really want to hear from, you know.
I'd love to see it go to 4 people and then maybe discuss steps along the way, like have us talk about what they've gotten to in November, put it on our agenda to give us at least 20 minutes or 30,
yeah.
actually good
Yeah.
robust time to look at it and then have the group meet again after that. We don't want to give people work.
No, that's the best way to get something done is to. Okay,
Same here, just because I have a lot of experience with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that'd be valuable. Okay.
Can we be like 4 or less, or 4 is too much?
No, it's 4 or less. Yeah. Okay, so I'm hearing strong interest from 3 people here. I'll put out the call to other folks as well to see if anyone is interested, with a note that this will be something that comes back pretty regularly to the boards, because I think there's a fair amount of interest from board members, even if you're not on this committee. Okay.
If you have challenges, Joanne, with finding a 4th, I'll step in.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And maybe you can also have, if someone's unable to attend a meeting with the 3 core members, a 4th person can be like rotating as just a thought partner.
That gets a little tricky with,
So
so then because you've had a quorum of people talk about the same item of board business, and then we get into open. Okay, sorry.
No.
Yeah. But I think that's like, if you make it a standing item on your agenda, hopefully that'll be like a good way to kind of checkpoint that progress and to make sure like you hear from all the people on the board. Okay. Okay, so I have Chris, Juan, and Karthik. I'll put out that kind of request to the larger group, and then circle with the 4 folks via email at first, and we can discuss what this looks like a little bit. Okay, I know there are a couple of other discussion questions here. Is there anything else that you all would like to share right now that can kind of guide that subcommittee's work as they dive in this fall? I'm hearing that categorization could be really valuable, that there is a need to make it easier to use, both in grouping questions, cutting down the list of questions, and making the format more user-friendly. I'm hearing that other resources could be really valuable. So obviously revising, making sure the questions comply with our equity glossary, but providing the equity glossary and potentially some other stuff that can help folks or help staff as they answer questions, and that it should apply both internally and externally.
Can I just ask one question? Andrea, you said that staff had challenges with the questions. Is it the volume of the questions or the question itself?
Both in some cases.
Okay.
So certainly volume of questions was a problem that most staff brought up as their difficulty in using it. Just if you're planning, a small project that maybe takes 2 months. 13 questions, it's actually more than 13 questions, because some of those questions have 3 questions in them.
Yeah.
That it's so much to sort through. And then the other thing that I heard from staff was, difficulty in using it for what stage of the planning process they were on. So some of the questions they couldn't answer because they wanted to use it right away at like, just the concept stage of what they're working on. So like, well, I don't exactly know who's gonna be impacted yet because I need to make a couple other decisions first. And so when do I really use this? And then where do I find the data that can help me answer some of these questions? So do we even have some of the data to help me answer some of these questions? And so, so I would say it's both. It's the volume and also some of the nature of the questions, depending on where they were in the concept development or policy development phase.
Okay.
Are there some examples you could share of when they were trying to apply this framework?
Oh, boy. Off the top of my head, no, but I know that several meetings occurred in 2024, and I think a few in 2023 when they came to the board and kind of worked through some of these things. So maybe we could go back in other meetings and kind of post links to some of those.
Were those the folks on the videos that were on the?
Yeah, what was linked in the memo were a couple of examples, but there are even more than that. If there's something you're curious about, if I went through the equity framework into the equity board,
Okay.
we can find those.
Sorry, I can't cite specifics because it's now like, a year ago in my head, and I've just kind of generalized it. Yeah.
But I think that feedback was excellent because it goes with what Karthik said in a flow chart. So the flow chart was they don't have enough information, and note could be in the next step, which step they should consider collecting it. And so any of these answers that they don't have, not there, and then they can make the part of the flow chart could be when could this information be then collected so that we're kind of keeping it in mind. Because I think the intention when we approved and we collated these questions was over time, it won't be as cumbersome, but it would just be more internalized where these are the kinds of thoughts you have as you're planning something. And so how do we help people internalize groups and marginalized communities and impact on people as they're making plans versus does it have to be like a focused, documented checkbox, I guess I thought about. Like, so it was kind of a balance. So I think the idea was some of it will be quick because you're just like, yes, I've done that versus I think that's part of what happened when we were agreeing to these questions, recognizing that it was a lot. But how do you should it take too much time, or how can people over time not feel like it's as big?
Just gets baked into their
Yes,
the way they
exactly
already. Yeah.
It becomes an internalized factor as they're planned.
And if I just may, for the group that's working on this, and then when you discuss it as a whole, if there's guidance from this group on how you want the staff to use it, that would be really helpful for that. Because, we have a bunch of staff from all different perspectives who are trying to use this framework. And I think it's a really good point, is that we just want to be able to adopt this mindset and just have it be a natural way of thinking. Or is this like a decision-making toolkit that we want them to fill out a form and kind of go through this, process? So how to use it is really, it's going to be important for staff because they want to, and they want to, fulfill your intentions and to implement. So guidance from you would be great. They would love that.
I have maybe one more topic. I don't know if it would be within scope, given the time that we have for this. But this question of data and how to get data or how to use data, especially how to find data that doesn't currently exist. that's needed to answer a lot of these questions or to kind of get a more quantitative sense of these. That's a big topic that, I don't know, as an equity, as a board, if we want to think about suggestions for how we might be able to gather some of this data, and maybe even more importantly, when data doesn't exist, are there other proxies that we can use or other questions we can ask that can still give us a qualitative sense that can help make decisions? That might be kind of an area within the framework.
And that was one of the big ones that came up when we met with the police department. Because when they presented, we asked about data and the data did not exist. And so we were giving them suggestions on, and then she was brainstorming on how she could potentially pull some, police chief, polish one. He was the one who did the presentation, on help us collect that data, because Equity Board was very curious as to some of the information being presented. So that did come up, and that has come up multiple times in presentations.
Is there a comfort level if there is not specific data attached to our framework as we revise it? Is there comfort in referring to other sources as places of either knowledge or understanding that aren't exactly a specific data? Because I'm looking at this and I'm sure we're going to be changing some of this, but this is self-reflection, and all self-reflection may not 100% be tied to quantitative information. So just as a question.
100%. I would think that there should be comfort in not having data, especially because in some cases you just might not be able to get your hands on the data because it's not been recorded. So, so yeah, I definitely think it would be partially qualitative, partially quantitative.
But I think part of the flow chart would be then let's start collecting data and let's put that. So when people are doing work now, they're always looking at, oh, how can we collect some of this? How can we've gone to these HOAs and we've talked about it. So let's put it down in writing, because in one of the presentations, the person was frustrated because they'd had multiple conversations in planning something. And when it was planned, she was like, why didn't we go back to all those previous meetings? Right. And so that goes to this point of what information has been collected in the past on this topic. And so
That's an excellent point. I think we should always try and find to mine data and to keep it as a reference point to know where we started and where we're going. It's a strong measurement. I just want to make sure that for me, in the work that I do, a lot of it is it's feeling, it's experience, it's working with groups, and that's the data point itself, as opposed to actual numbers. I think a marriage of both gives you, I think you have a foot in both worlds where you can support it by genuine data, but also the human element. So.
Okay, I think the group has some really good feedback to go on. I think they'll be returning to you all to ask for even more as this progresses. So I think I have everything I need for this item. Thank you all for your discussion, for your review, and your thoughtfulness.
Fantastic. So our next agenda item is other business or announcements. So Jillian, do you have anything this evening?
I don't have anything.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Just to note that again, that next meeting is going to be later in October 22nd.
Is it gonna be here?
It might actually be at the senior center, but I wanted to confirm that before.
Okay.
Yeah, but the senior center is also here in Old Town in case you haven't visited, right behind City Hall.
And it's been redone, the back
plaza.
portion. Yeah.
There's a whole new kind of park running through there, and through a little bit of a couple of other sections, and it's been great to see how much has been utilized, and they're kind of like covered pavilions and stuff out there now. So
It's beautiful.
yeah.
I can't wait to go over there. Okay, well, since there is no other business or announcements, I don't have anything. I guess we've reached a point in our meeting where we can adjourn unless Jillian has anything. Okay, I'm just trying to read the room. So, since we don't have any other business or announcements, I would like to adjourn this evening's meeting of the Equity Board at 7:30 PM on the dot. Thank you all very much. Great meeting.